The first launch of a Nintendo console that I was excited for was the Wii U. I was born in 2001, so I was an infant when the GameCube came out. I was 5 when the Wii came out, and I was 11 when the Wii U launched. In the months leading up to the Wii U's launch, I was watching trailers for the system and launch titles. The gamepad really intrigued me, and I was like, this console looks really cool. Surely it'll be a success, right? Right? And then fast forward to 2016 when the Switch was still known as just the NX. It was already an open secret that the console would be a home console and handheld hybrid, and I'll admit I was pretty skeptical of the console, and I even made videos back then that are still up, talking about my concern over whether or not the NX would be a success or just another Wii U. And then the reveal trailer for the Switch dropped, and I was like, okay, alright, this console actually does look really fucking cool. I'm sold. Fast forward to 2025, the Switch 2 is finally here after years and years and years of Switch Pro rumors and then Switch 2 rumors. And honestly, I can't give a shit less. I have no interest in buying this console, at least not right now. First off, it's $450. I mean, I could buy it if I really wanted to, but I just really don't feel like spending that kind of money right now. And really, what about the console is that spectacular anyway? Oh, it can run games in 4K, yeah, something that has been the fucking standard in the gaming industry for almost 10 years at this point, that Nintendo has only now just caught up on. It has a bigger and better 1080p screen! Whoop-de shit, I never play my Switch games in handheld mode anyway. Nintendo finally implemented built-in game chat, yeah, something that has been the standard for Sony and Microsoft consoles since what, 2006? And it's locked behind Nintendo's online service anyway. There is a voice chat button on the Joy-Cons and the Pro Controller, and that button is completely fucking useless unless you're throwing money at Nintendo, on top of the $450 you spent on the console. But, the Switch 2 has better storage than the Switch 1. The Switch 1 had a measly 64 gigabytes of internal storage. Meanwhile, the Switch 2 has 256 gigabytes of internal storage. That's not a fucking win. 256 gigabytes of built-in storage for a console that released in the year 2025? There are games today whose amount of storage alone is almost as big as the amount of storage built into the Switch 2. Look at the fucking Call of Duty games, for example. Those games are like, what, over 100 gigabytes of storage or something erroneous like that? A big reason as to why I don't play Call of Duty is because of those fucking ridiculous storage sizes. You'd be able to fit like, what, 2 of those games on the Switch 2, if that? And that's assuming if those 2 games are the only 2 games installed onto your Switch 2, which I highly doubt they would be. Even the base PS5 having around 650 gigabytes of internal storage or something like that in 2020 was seen as a joke. There is no reason for a major platform that came out in the current year to have such a pitiful amount of storage. Oh, but what about, and this has got to be the secret weapon, right? GameCube games. Nintendo is finally acknowledging that the GameCube fucking existed and is putting GameCube games onto their online service exclusively on the Switch 2. Yeah, I'm good. I have a perfectly functional GameCube. I have a collection of GameCube games right here in my room that I actually own that is not tethered to an online service and that Nintendo could pull at any time for any reason. Now look, I've said before that the Switch 2 is exactly what it needs to be. A Switch but with extra bells and whistles. But I'm tired of Nintendo doing the bare minimum, adding features and specs that have been the norm for other platforms for years or maybe even well over a decade, and then Nintendo fans heralding the bare minimum as some kind of massive win. You shouldn't be applauding Nintendo for taking nearly 20 fucking years to catch up to Sony and Microsoft when it comes to having built-in voice and face chat on their console. Or hell, not even. The Wii U had built-in face chat for free. And then the Switch 1 had no such communication features. You had to get a fucking smartphone app to talk to other players when playing online in certain games. At that point, you may as well be using Discord or any other app with voice chat functionality that you could use for free. Anyway, Nintendo arriving so fucking late to the party and implementing such a basic feature shouldn't be met with applause, but instead should be met with what the fuck took so long. And specs that have been common practice for other consoles for years at this point shouldn't be applauded either. It's egregious that the Switch 1 was as underpowered as it was, and that it couldn't sustain long-term, consistent third-party support because of how underpowered overpowered it was. The Switch 2 seems like it rocks competent hardware, and that's of course a good thing. It just shouldn't have taken this long for Nintendo to realize that yes, having good specs is important. You can't just coast on your first-party titles alone. So yeah, I'm not super impressed by the Switch 2, and there is nothing so far that is enticing me to run out and go buy one. And I'm not totally against getting a Switch 2 someday. I may buy the system one day. This video isn't me saying that I'll never own a Switch 2 one day, so if I ever do own a Switch 2 and you want to pull the haha, you're a fucking hypocrite card, sorry. There could be games that come along in the future that only release for the Switch 2, where I'm like, okay, this game is worth me getting a Switch 2. But yeah, as it stands right now, the Switch 2 isn't very appealing to me, and I'm not going to applaud Nintendo for doing the bare minimum and catching up on things they're like over a decade late on. And here's a minor thing I want to touch up on briefly. I also find it egregious that the Switch 2's UI is literally just a copy-paste of the Switch 1's bland and lifeless UI. A friend of mine here online got the Switch 2 at launch, and he uploaded an unboxing and first impressions video. I'll link it in the description. I mean, he's only uploaded like 5 videos so far, and he's already killing it, not like he needs my help, but I'm sure he would still appreciate any extra views coming my way. Anyway, I was watching his video, and he was showcasing the Switch's UI for a little bit, and I was like, damn, they really did just reuse the same bland as fuck UI on the Switch 1 with the Switch 2. And I heard the eShop on the Switch 2 is the same sluggish garbage eShop as the one on the Switch 1. Remember when Nintendo was top dog when it came to fun and unique UI? Those days are long gone. And I think that's a testament to how lazy current-day Nintendo is, and that laziness is one of the many factors that play into why I hopped off the Nintendo hype train a long time ago. Anyway, if you own a Switch 2 and you're having fun with it, fine. I'm not gonna shit all over your fun, nor am I gonna shit on you for buying the console. Though I will say, if you gladly bought Mario Kart World at full price, I do not want to hear you complaining when the average price for games inevitably becomes $80 or more. Just shut up and pay up just like you did for Mario Kart World, a game that has less content at launch than its predecessor. No 200cc mode, no mirror mode. I don't care if there will be DLC later on down the line that adds these modes. Nintendo is still asking for more money for a game that comes with less content, and yet I'm supposed to feel enthusiastic for this company? Fuck that. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.